The court also releasing security camera images from the hallway outside Duke's apartment in the days leading up to Missouri's, proving the mother would leave and not come back for long periods of time.
Look close. This camera caught a mother walking out on her own babies, again and again. Days later, help arrived to find one twin gone. The other so hungry he reached for medical gear, thinking it was food. And what hurts most is how many people already saw this coming. So let's slow it all the way down and start from the top. Because to make sense of how two babies ended up alone in that apartment, you have to understand the woman who was raising them and the warning signs that were sitting there in plain view long before any of this turned tragic. Her name is Valencia Duke, a 25-year-old living in Southeast Washington, D.C., and she was raising 13-month-old twins, a baby girl named Missouri Jones and her twin brother, both born around December of 2024. At that age, a baby is completely helpless and leans on a grown-up for every single thing it needs, from food to water to simply being kept warm, which means whoever is looking after them is carrying the whole weight of whether they make it or not. In this home, that weight sat almost entirely on Valencia because the twins' father was already locked up, behind bars outside the district since November of 2025, well before any of this ever happened. What makes the story land even heavier is that this was not the first time the system had a reason to worry about her around a child. Years earlier, she had already lost a different child to the authorities after she failed to give that little one the medicine it needed to stay healthy. So by the time the twins came along, there was already a paper trail showing a parent who struggled to keep a child cared for. That history matters here, because the case against her does not rest on one bad week sitting all by itself. It rests on a pattern that stretched back years, and that pattern only kept going once the twins were born. People who knew her say leaving those babies behind had basically become routine, something she did again and again without much thought for what it was doing to them. She would hand the twins off for long stretches, at a time with no food and no clean diapers, and would never even call to check whether they were okay, and the people around her watched it happen while the infants were left on their own, overnight, and sometimes far longer. What makes that lead-up sit so heavy is how ordinary it had all started to feel for everybody around her, like leaving two infants alone was just a thing she did now. And the longer it went on without anyone stepping in to stop it, the more those gaps between her visits seemed to stretch. Each time she walked out that door, the odds were tilting a little further against two babies who had no way of asking for help and no one in the room to give it. By that middle stretch of January, all of those small failures were lining up into one stretch of days that the people who loved those children would never be able to take back, no matter how many times they replayed it later. So let's get into that week in January, because this is the stretch that turned years of quiet neglect into a case a medical examiner would eventually label a homicide. The window everybody points to runs from January 14th to January 18th of 2026. And when investigators later went back through the building's security footage and matched it against the timeline, what they found is honestly hard to even say out loud. Across a span of more than 92 hours, Valencia was inside that apartment with her babies for only about 2 hours in total, which works out to barely a handful of minutes a day for two infants who needed her every waking moment.
Investigators say Duke left her alone in her apartment for more than 92 hours, and during that time frame, only returning 3 times briefly.
3 quick trips in and out across 4 whole days, and nothing more, which meant that for almost every hour of that window, those two babies were on their own behind a locked door, shut inside a playpen on the 3rd floor with nobody coming back for them. And the place they were left in was a wreck on every level you can imagine.
Photos from charging documents show the filthy and cluttered conditions police say they found inside and outside the apartment the night Missouri Jones was found by her mother. Police say Valencia has since...
The photos in the court papers showed food scraps all over the floor, sinks full of standing water, and dirty laundry stacked right around the same playpen the babies were stuck in, and even the baby formula. The one thing those infants actually needed to survive had insects inside the container, and it went past just being filthy.
Police also say they found what appeared to be crack in the apartment and a bottle with rancid lemonade.
Then came January 18th, a little after 6 in the evening, when officers were called to the apartment after a report of child who was not responding, and what they walked into is the kind of scene that stays with first responders for the rest of their lives.
Officers say once inside the apartment, they found Duke's 13-month-old daughter, Missouri Jones, and showing signs of decomposition.
Baby Missouri was already gone, and from the way responders described her condition, she had clearly been left far too long. Right beside her, her twin brother was somehow still hanging on, though only barely, and his little body showed just how long he had gone without eating. He was so weak from the cold and the hunger that when help finally reached him, he reached for the medical gear, thinking it might be something to eat. Paramedics could not save Missouri, while her brother was rushed to the hospital, where he fought through several days of care and, thank God, came out the other side alive. Once the Special Victims Unit started pulling the case apart, the first story Valencia told fell apart right along with it.
According to charging documents, Duke told police a friend was babysitting her children and abandoned them. Surveillance footage included as evidence in the case shows only Valencia Duke going in and out of her apartment. The prosecution argues that there was no babysitter.
She told police a friend had been babysitting and had abandoned the kids, but the cameras only ever showed her coming and going, with nobody else around, so prosecutors say there was never any babysitter at all. And the deeper investigators dug into the family, the clearer it became that plenty of people had tried to raise the alarm long before that week.
Court records show that Child Services got multiple calls about the twins and their mother, Valencia Duke. 4 years ago, she lost custody of another very young child because she wasn't providing life-saving medicine, and her parents reported her to Child Services in Maryland. Here in D.C., the twins' grandparents again called Child and Family Services about their daughter neglecting her. Not once, but twice, last summer and again over the holidays.
Court records show that Child Services had gotten more than one call about these twins, with the grandparents reaching out to the agency about their own daughter twice, once in the summer and again over the holidays, and that was all on top of the earlier child she had already lost years before in Maryland. By the time the police finished, the document they put together showed just how many people had been watching this happen.
This 60-page arrest warrant is filled with interviews of people who said they knew.
The warrant ran 60 pages, packed with interviews from people who said they knew something was wrong, so this was never something hidden away in the dark. The signs were loud, and a whole lot of folks had been pointing right at them. Eventually, the truth came straight from Valencia herself.
In court, prosecutors revealed Duke confessed on Wednesday night to leaving her two children in her apartment alone without access to food and water for 4 days. The medical examiner's office determined that she died of dehydration and malnourishment due to neglect and ruled her death outside in April.
In plain words, the system was now saying this baby did not simply slip away on her own, but that somebody let it happen. And maybe the coldest detail of all was how Valencia reacted when she was told her daughter was gone, because by the account in the court papers, she showed no emotion at all. With the medical examiner's ruling in hand, the case finally had the weight it needed, and the law came for her.
Now we have a photo of the 25-year-old charged with first-degree murder. She was arrested yesterday at her brother's home in Temple Hills.
On June 3rd of 2026, a regional fugitive task force tracked Valencia down and arrested her, reportedly at her brother's home in Temple Hills. And the charges they brought are about as serious as they come. She was hit with a first-degree felony murder charge tied to Missouri's death, plus 2 counts of first-degree cruelty to children, 1 count for each twin. The very next day, she stood in front of a judge.
Suspect Valencia Duke went before a judge late today. She was ordered held without bond, the judge calling the circumstances of this case very troubling.
On June 4th, Superior Court Judge Heidi Herman found there was enough evidence to move the case forward and ordered Valencia held with no bond, describing the circumstances of the case as very troubling. Her defense pushed to have her released, and the reason they gave opened up another side of the story.
Duke's attorney asked the judge to release her, saying Duke struggles with mental health issues, including PTSD.
And then came a detail that left the room quiet.
And at the end of the hearing today, her attorney told the judge that Valencia is now 13 weeks pregnant.
So while she sits behind bars, answering for one baby who did not survive and another who nearly did not, there is a new little one on the way. And it is worth noting that not a single family member or friend showed up in that courtroom to stand beside her.
She also faces 2 counts of first-degree cruelty to children. Valencia Duke is due back in court in a week.
She is due back in court within the week, and the case is still in its early rounds. I do have to say this part clearly, because it matters. Valencia Duke is presumed innocent unless and until she is proven guilty, and everything laid out in those court papers is still something she will answer for at trial.
Yes, well, what we learned is that when I sat through court and I went through these court documents, it was troubling to see some of the details. Investigators say that inside of this apartment is where a mother left her 13-month-old in a playpen for days with no food, no water, no heat. And by the time the little girl was found, she was already dead. This is a picture of the mother, 25-year-old Valencia Duke. Investigators say she intentionally left alone for days. In this playpen, the 13-month-old girl was found and already decomposing right next to her 13-month-old twin brother, who doctors say was barely holding on.
How can a mother do that to a kid, their own son, their own blood?
I went back to the apartment where investigators found the infants. Parents who live nearby could not imagine this happened so close, especially Demetria Fultz, who lost her son in a bus crash.
And as far as a child passing away, it messes my heart because I lost my son 4 years ago at 10 years old. So it's heartbreaking to hear something like that came in this neighborhood.
Doctors say when the twin brother was brought to the hospital, he tried to eat the stethoscope. He had hypothermia, his protruding through his body, and other physical details that are too to share.
The ages alone is just shocking and just terrifying. You know, it's just crazy. It's crazy for a child.
Take a look at these images from Duke's charging documents. It shows the condition of the home she left her in. Food debris all over, sinks filled with water, baby formula with inside. And what police say is crack in bags, rancid liquids, and that's just some of it. Investigators say that Duke initially lied to them and said that she left her babies with the babysitter who left them in the apartment. She later admitted to leaving them alone here for days, and we learned that she was with her boyfriend. Back to you.
Yeah, Felicia, just a terrible, heartbreaking story here. Who called 911 and who found the kids?
Right, well, this is one of the many shocking parts that I learned when going through those records. It was the mother, Duke, that called the police when she essentially came back to the apartment. And police say that when she was on that call, she claimed that she was there, but in the background, they heard a car engine turn on and a door closing. On top of that, they also say that one of the young kids in here, they were, as we mentioned, we also spoke about the surroundings in there. On top of that, she has another child. She's also expecting another baby. As I'm speaking to you right now, she's facing a felony murder charge as well as 2 cruelty to children charges. Of course, we'll continue to keep you updated on this horrific story, but for now, reporting live from Southeast DC, Felicia Ashley, 7 News.
But there is a bigger question hanging over all of this that no charge can really settle, and the neighborhood asked it out loud. With family calling, with child services warned more than once, with hospitals and witnesses all aware, how did these babies still fall through every crack there was?
A witness, someone who knew her, called CFSA twice. So those steps were taken. What else is there, or what's next? Who dropped the ball here?
I think it really needs, again, accountability on all sides, because if we don't have anyone overseeing the overseers, right? It reminds me of the Bonita Jackson story.
That is Beverly Smith, who runs a group that helps parents who are struggling, asking the same thing everybody in that community was asking, which is who dropped the ball. The people did their part, and they called more than once, and the children were still left in harm's way. Even the local leadership had to answer for it, with the council member who oversees the agency putting out a statement of his own.
Is absolutely horrific, and my heart is with the family and loved ones of the child who lost her life and her brother, who has a long road of healing ahead of him. My office is in touch with CFSA to understand what reports were filed and what outreach was conducted. All district children deserve healthy, safe homes and the chance to thrive.
And if any part of you is sitting there thinking a case like this is some rare one-off that could never happen anywhere else, I want to show you that it has, almost step for step. Out in Cleveland back in 2023, a mother named Crystal Candelario left her 16-month-old daughter, Jalen, alone in a playpen for about 10 days while she went off on a trip. And you'll notice it's the same young age and the playpen and the same kind of nightmare.
We're here on a very tragic case.
Prosecutors, the judge, and investigators described it as one of the most horrific cases.
She is taking a suitcase and now leaving Cuyahoga County.
Then 31-year-old Crystal Candelario vacationing in Puerto Rico.
She was a mother. She got a title that means something in this world.
While her 16-month daughter, Jaylene, was in a pack-and-play with her for 10 days, starving to death.
This baby loved her mother. She needed her mother, and her mother betrayed her.
When Candelario finally returned home, she called 911 in a panic.
She didn't want this, to happen. You could hear that.
Her attorney says she was dealing with depression and anxiety without treatment. Through an interpreter, Candelario said she's asked for forgiveness.
I'm not trying to justify my actions.
Pero nadie sabe cuánto yo estaba sufriendo.
But nobody knew how much I was suffering.
Dios y mi hija me han perdonado.
God and my daughter have forgiven me.
Prosecutors said after finding her, Candelario changed her daughter's clothes and lied to police to hide her crime, then continued to talk about her fun vacation while in jail.
You committed the ultimate act of betrayal.
Judge Brendan Sheehan described the bond between mother and child as the most pure and sacred, and then handed down the maximum sentence.
You should spend the rest of your life in a cell without freedom. The only difference will be that prison will at least feed you.
The little girl did not survive, and Candelario was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole, which shows you just how seriously the courts treat a parent who walks away and leaves a small child to fend completely alone. And it reaches back even further than that. Down in Georgia, a woman named Tiffany Moss let her 10-year-old stepdaughter, Imani, go without food until the little girl weighed only about 32 pounds, and a jury found her guilty of felony murder and cruelty. Moss was sentenced to death, becoming one of the very few women on Georgia's death row.
This is the jury's verdict in case 18B 1541-1, State of Georgia versus Tiffany Nicole Moss. Count 1, findings of jury as to alleged statutory aggravating circumstances. We, the jury, find beyond a reasonable doubt that the offense of murder as alleged in Count 1 was outrageously or wantonly vile, horrible, or inhuman in that it involved torture of the victim before death. We, the jury, find beyond a reasonable doubt that the offense of murder as alleged in Count 1 was outrageously or wantonly vile, horrible, or inhuman in that it involved depravity of mind of the defendant, signed and dated by the foreperson. Verdict as to penalty, Count 1, murder. We, the jury, recommend and fix the penalty as death, signed and dated by the foreperson. Please give it to counsel for their review as to form, sir. Any exceptions to the form of the verdict by the state?
None from the state as to form or something.
Any exceptions to the form of the verdict by the defense?
No, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, under these circumstances, it's necessary that the court conduct a...
It was a different state with different rules, but the same hard truth runs straight through all of it, which is that when a caregiver lets a child waste away through pure neglect, the law is willing to call it murder, and the punishment can climb all the way up to life behind bars and even death. For now, Valencia sits in a DC jail with no bond, waiting on her next hearing and carrying a child while she answers for the daughter she lost and the son who barely held on. That surviving twin, the little boy who reached for the medical gear because he was so hungry, is now in the care of child services, with a long road of healing ahead of him. And one day, when he is old enough to really understand, somebody is going to have to find the words to tell him that he spent those days lying right beside his sister and that it could have just as easily been him. That is the weight this whole story leaves behind.
And one day he will learn that he was laying beside his sister, and that could have been him. Think of the trauma that he's going to experience. It's not okay.
It was never only a question of one woman's guilt. It is the harder question of how a baby can be failed by so many hands at the very same time. Do you really think Valencia has postpartum blues even while being pregnant again? Let me know in the comments section. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this. See you in the next one.